Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Blake's Everyday Podcast. We finished at the end of Deuteronomy chapter 2. So today we're going to start off at Deuteronomy chapter 3. I was just looking at myself in the video just a second ago, and I was like, you know, all you ever really see me wear is a hoodie or a jacket, and I'm makes me think that people probably think that I live in like Alaska or something, and I don't know. I live in like the sunniest place you could live, but all you'll see me wear is a hoodie or a jacket, which doesn't make any sense. But here I am. Yeah, so I don't even know where I was going with that, to be honest with you. But I am going to go ahead and start us off at Deuteronomy chapter 3. I don't know how far we're going to make it, to be honest, but we're gonna figure that out as we go. Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, and then I had to read the descriptions that I forgot to read last night, because now I remember. Because we did have a couple descriptions here that I just totally forgot to read last night. And then during prayer, I was like, oh yeah. So chapter 2, verse 7. God was not rejecting his people when he consigned them to 40 years of wilderness wanderings. He was lovingly guiding them in a way that would bring them some much needed discipline. It is comforting to remember that even after we have failed, God continues to shower his loving care upon us. He may lead us through a time of difficult discipline. But he never leaves us during the hard times. Often he allows them for our own good. Although the Israelites had rejected his plans, God protected Israel in the wilderness even after our worst failures. When terrible consequences are bearing down on us, God is there. Chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. Timing is often an essential element in God's plan. It is sometimes necessary for us to see the truth about our desperate situation before we can begin to grow spiritually. It was necessary for the Israelites to experience what seemed to be total defeat in the wilderness before they could learn how to trust God's plan and do things his way. We should be careful to learn from Israel's mistakes. Let us learn to give up our plans for life before we discover that the consequences are disastrous. We would be wise to accept God's plans and follow them carefully. Yeah. All right. So the title for chapter 3 is Defeat of Og, King of Bashan. Next we turned and went up along the road toward Bashan. And Og, king of Bashan, with his whole army, marched out to meet us in battle at Edrei. The Lord said to me, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands, along with his whole army and his land. Do to him what you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. So the Lord our God also gave into our hands Og, king of Bashan, and all his army. We struck them down, leaving no survivors. At that time we took all his cities. There was not one of the 60 cities that we did not take from them. The whole region of Argob, Og's kingdom in Bashan, all these cities were fortified with high walls and with gates and bars. And there were also a great many unwalled villages. We completely destroyed them, as we had done with Sihon king of Heshbon, destroying every city, men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the plunder from the cities we carried off for ourselves. So at that time we took from these two kings of the Amorites the territory east of the Jordan, from the Arnon Gorge. Already, dang. From the Arnon Gorge as far as Mount Hermon. Hermon is called Sirion by the Sidonians. The Amorites call it Sinir. We took all the towns on the plateau and all Gilead and all Bashan, as far as Salica and Edrei, towns of Og's kingdom in Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, was the last of the Rephites. His bed was decorated with iron and was more than 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. It is still in Rabbah of the Amorites. Of the land that we took over at that time, I gave the Reubenites and the Gadites the territory north of Aurora by the Arnon Gorge. I almost did it again. Including half the hill country of Gilead, together with its towns, the rest of Gilead, and also all of Bashan. The kingdom of Og I gave to the half tribe of Manasseh. The whole region of Argob and Bashan used to be known as a land of the Rephites. Jair, and a descendant of Manasseh, took the whole region of Argob as far as the border of the Geshurites, and the Mechathites. It was named after him, so that this day Bashan is called Havoth Jair. And I gave Gilead to Machir, but the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory extending from Gilead down to the Arnon Gorge, the middle of the gorge being the border, and out to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. Its western border was the Jordan and the Arabah, from Kinnereth to the sea of the Arabah, that is the Dead Sea, below the slopes of Pisgah. Sorry if I'm talking really loud. I'm just getting irritated with myself for not being able to pronounce some things, so sorry about that. I commanded you at that time, the Lord your God has given you this land to take possession of it. But all your able-bodied men armed for battle must cross over ahead of the other Israelites. However, your wives, your children, and your livestock, I know you have much livestock, may stay in the towns I have given you, until the Lord gives rest to your fellow Israelites, as he has to you. And they too have taken over the land that the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan. After that, each of you may go back to the possession I have given you. At that time I commanded Joshua, you have seen with your own eyes all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. The Lord will do the same to all the kingdoms over there where you are going. Do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. At that time I pleaded with the Lord, Sovereign Lord, you have begun to show to your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty works you do? Let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill country in Lebanon. But because of you, the Lord was angry with me and would not listen to me. That is enough, the Lord said. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah and look west and north and south and east. Look at the land with your own eyes, since you are not going to cross this Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him. For he will lead this people across and will cause them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. Okay, so that was chapter 3. We do have, looks like 3 descriptions here. So chapter 3, verses 1 through 2. Israel's resources were pitifully limited, but God gave them victory. It was not by their military strength, but by God's power that they overcame the nation of Bashan. Our human resources are limited. Once we accept this reality, we can ask God to give us his resources. God's resources, not ours, will be sufficient for all our needs. Our recognition of our lack of power provides wonderful opportunities for God to prove his power. Chapter 3, verses 12 through 20. 3 of the Israelite tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, wanted land on the east side of the Jordan River, just outside the Promised Land. God allowed them to do this, but he also demanded that they follow through on their promises to fight in the conquest of Canaan. The other tribes had counted on their support, and their failure to help in the conquest might have created deep divisions within God's chosen nation. We must take responsibility for our promises and decisions. This is important to remember as we seek to build, reconcile, and maintain our relationships with others. I like that. Chapter 3, verses 23 through 29. Even Moses was not exempt from God's requirements. As great as he was, God's commands still applied to him. We must never presume to be a special case. We must not rationalize and excuse ourselves from God's plan for holy living. Rather, we should seek out and then joyfully accept God's plan for us. His plans are always best. All right, now we move on to chapter 4. Yeah, we'll see. Sorry, I'm kind of looking ahead. I'm like, Which, I mean, we're definitely going to read chapter 4, don't get me wrong. Back 13 minutes in. All right. All right, chapter 4, the title is Obedience Commanded. Now, Israel, hear the decrees and laws I am about to teach you. Follow them so that you may live and may go in and take possession of the land the Lord, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. Do not add to what I command you, and do not subtract from it, but keep the commands of the Lord your God that I give you. You saw with your own eyes what the Lord did to Baal Peor. The Lord your God destroyed them among you, everyone who followed the Baal of Peor. But all of you who held fast to the Lord your God are still alive today. See, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me, so that you may follow them in the land you are entering, to take possession of it. Observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations, who will hear about all these decrees and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. What other nation is so great as to have their gods near them the way the Lord our God is near us whenever we pray to him? And what other nation is so great as to have such righteous decrees and laws as this body of laws I am setting before you today? Only be careful and watch yourselves closely, so that you do not forget the things your eyes have seen, or let them fade from your heart as long as you live. Teach them to your children and to their children after them. Remember the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when he said to me, assemble the people before me to hear my words, so that they may learn to reserve me, as long as they live in the land, and may teach them to their children. You came near and stood at the foot of the mountain while it blazed with fire to the very heavens, with black clouds and deep darkness. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but saw no form. There was only a voice. He declared to you his covenant, the 10 Commandments, which he commanded you to follow, and then wrote them on 2 stone tablets. And the Lord directed me at that time to teach you the decrees and laws you are to follow in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You saw no form of any kind the day the Lord spoke to you at Horeb out of the fire. Therefore watch yourselves very carefully, so that you do not become corrupt and make for yourselves an idol, an image of any shape, whether formed like a man or a woman, or like any animal on earth, or any bird that flies in the air, or like any creature that moves along the ground, or any fish in the waters below. And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the heavenly array, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping things the Lord your God has appointed to all the nations under heaven. But as for you, the Lord took you and brought you out of the iron smelting furnace of Egypt, out of Egypt, to the people of his inheritance, as you now are. The Lord was angry with me because of you, and he solemnly swore that I would not cross the Jordan and enter the good land the Lord your God is giving you as your inheritance. I will die in this land. I will not cross the Jordan. But you are about to cross over and take possession of that good land. Be careful not to forget the covenant of the Lord your God that he made with you. Do not make for yourselves an idol in the form of anything the Lord your God has forbidden. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. After you have had children and grandchildren and have lived in the land a long time, if you then become corrupt and make any kind of idol, doing evil in the eyes of the Lord your God, and arousing his anger, I call the heavens and the earth as witness against you this day, that you will quickly perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not live there long, but will certainly be destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and only a few of you will survive among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. There you will worship man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see or hear or eat or smell. But if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things have happened to you, then in later days you will return to the Lord your God and obey him. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not abandon or destroy you or forget the covenant with you, with your ancestors, which he confirmed to them by oath. Ask now about the former days, long before your time. From the day God created human beings on the earth, ask from one end of the heavens to the other, has anything so great as this ever happened? Or has anything like it ever been heard of? Has any other people heard the voice of God, speaking out of fire as you have, and lived? Has any God ever tried to take for himself one nation out of another nation, by testings, by signs and wonders, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, or by great and awesome deeds, like all the things the Lord your God did for you in Egypt, before your very eyes? You were shown these things so that you might know that the Lord is God. Besides him, there is no other. From heaven he made you hear his voice to discipline you. On earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words from out of the fire, because he loved your ancestors and chose their descendants after them. He brought you out of Egypt by his presence and his great strength, to drive out before you nations greater and stronger than you, and to bring you into their land, to give it to you for your inheritance as it is today. Acknowledge and take to heart this day that the Lord is God, and heaven above and on earth below there is no other. Keep his decrees and commands, which I am giving you today, so that it may go well with you and your children after you, and that you may live long in the land the Lord your God gives you for all time. Then Moses set aside 3 cities east of the Jordan, to which anyone who had killed a person could flee if they had unintentionally killed a neighbor without malice. After forethought, they could flee into one of these cities and save their life. The cities were these: Bezer in the wilderness plateau for the Reubenites, Ramoth and Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan for the Manassites. This is the law Moses set before the Israelites. These are the stipulations, decrees, and laws Moses gave them when they came out of Egypt and were in the valley near Beth Peor, east of the Jordan, in the land of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, and was defeated by Moses and the Israelites as they came out of Egypt. They took possession of his land and the land of Og, king of Bashan, the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan. This land extended from Arior and the rim of Arnon Gorge to Mount Sirion, that is Hermon, and included all the Arabah east of the Jordan, as far as the Dead Sea below the slopes of Pisgah. Okay. 23 minutes in. We do have quite a bit. We have a lot of descriptions here. Depending on how long these descriptions take, we might call that it for the night. Chapter 4, verse 2. God's directions are not to be tempered with. It is tempting to add to God's provisions or take away from them. But if we are to have victory, we must accept God's way as it is, not as we might wish it to be. These requirements were offered for Israel's guidance. They were a gracious provision of God's love. God, through his word and loving presence in our lives, also provides us with all we need. Gosh darn it. With all we need to live lives of fulfillment and contentment. Would have been nice to read that whole description without yawning, gotta say. Chapter 4, verse 9. In the following verses, we see expressions of warning such as, be careful, no matter how secure we may feel in our righteousness. If we are unwary, we are on the verge of a fall. Here, Israel was charged to remember what God had done for them. Remembering the victories and failures of the past can help us guard against sin and failure in the present. The Israelites were also instructed to pass their wisdom and experience on to the next generation. We also are responsible to pass on to our children the wisdom learned from our past. This will give them a chance, if they choose to listen, to avoid some of the mistakes we have made. God is concerned that godly attitudes and wisdom are passed on to each successive generation. Yeah, I don't know why I got it. Chapter 4, verses 15 through 19. God warned the Israelites time and again about the dangers of idolatry. Most of us aren't tempted to worship a carved figure or statue, but in our busy world, a multitude of other matters clamor for our attention and affection. It is sometimes difficult to remember that we owe our primary allegiance to God. He requires absolute devotion from his people. He will not be satisfied with taking second place in our lives. Spiritual renewal begins when we put God in his rightful place first. Totally agree. Which, I mean, yeah. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with everybody. I mean, well, with everything in our world, I mean, you can make an idol out of anything, it seems like. So, just remember to put God first. I mean, so many people fail at that. I know a lot of people that are huge fans of things, which I myself am a huge fan of, like, let's say the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Denver Broncos or something like that, you know. But I'm not gonna put them before God. You know what I mean? It's important. Well, even at that, you know, don't make an idol out of your significant other or anything. I mean, like, you should love your significant other, but you still have to put God ahead of your significant other. All right. Chapter 4, verse 20. God delivered Israel for a specific purpose. He forged Israel into a nation to be his chosen possession. And through his special nation, God planned to bring salvation to the whole world. Why has God delivered us? God's purposes for us are quite specific. We need to ask these questions. What does God want from us? Why did God save us? He may intend to use us to bring his saving grace into the lives of many who suffer from problems and similar to our own. I like that. Chapter 4, verses 23 through 24. All relationships come with responsibilities. Here we are reminded that this is also true of our relationship with God. We cannot remake God as we would like him to be. We must relate to him as he is. The only true God demands that we give him our full devotion. As with any relationship, we need to be faithful to God if we wish our relationship to remain strong. This book calls the Israelites to follow through on their responsibilities to God. The consequences for ignoring responsibilities in any relationship are great. Failing in our relationship with God results in even deeper problems. Chapter 4, verses 29 through 31. Here, God reaffirms his compassion toward victims of painful circumstances. He proves his compassion by promising to come through for his people, even when they have failed him. He asks only that his people listen to him and follow his instructions for holy living. Our relationship with God is certain because it is based upon God's compassion for us, even when we don't necessarily deserve it. He has provided a means for our relationship to be reconciled. The work of Jesus Christ, God is faithful. We can be sure he will come through for us. Dang, another description. It's a lot of descriptions. Chapter 4, verses 34 through 40. Here we see a glorious review of God's work on Israel's behalf. In this account, Israel's many failures aren't even mentioned. They are forgotten in the amazing story of how God led his people from slavery in Egypt to the promised land. God's plans for Israel succeeded in the long run, despite Israel's tendency to rebel against God and his plans. Since we all have a tendency to rebel, Israel's history should be a source of encouragement for us. God will continue to work with us, disciplining us when it is needed, comforting us when we are discouraged. If we trust him, our own history will be a glorious account of our journey from slavery to freedom. All the failures and mistakes graciously lost amidst the acts of God's goodness. All right, I think we're going to call it there and start on chapter 5 tomorrow. I mean, I'd love to keep reading, but it took me probably a little over 9 minutes just to read the descriptions there. I think 2 chapters is good. I mean, well, it's just, I don't know. You get me. Dear God, we come to you tonight just happy and healthy. Once again, thank you for keeping us healthy another day. Thank you for keeping us on this path that you put us on. Thank you for continuing to feed us. Thank you for continuing to grace us with your presence, whether it be on your leadership or anything that involves talking to you or you guiding us to anything that we might be striving for. Dear God, just thank you for blessing us. Thank you for giving us another wonderful Wednesday. We look forward to a wonderful Thursday and talking to you again tomorrow, Lord. In God's name, amen. I felt good about that one. I felt really good about that prayer. I felt good. Felt really good. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday night. Don't work too hard tomorrow. Let's have a good Thursday, though. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you.